Oh, hi everybody. Welcome to Ohio Has Issues. I'm Mike Polk.
I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for being back with us this week.
This is your spot if you want to learn about Ohio politics. And we're here to feed you that slop.
Yeah, we are. We are. And all is right in the world. We have Mike back with us this week. You won't have to just
happy.
stare at me for a whole show, and we'll get to...
Oh yeah, I'm going to put this on. Why not?
We'll get to hear from him as soon as he puts his microphone on. That's not the right microphone, though, so we're going to get the right microphone from him.
I forgot.
We're going to ask Beebs to hand us his appropriate microphone so that I can make sure and get it on him.
What are we doing?
Because otherwise it's on the ground.
It's okay. Hey, you know what? Like Ohio politics, sometimes things get a little sloppy around here.
Sometimes things have issues. Thank you, Beebs. We're going to pass this microphone.
Beebs, come back behind us for a second and say hi.
You know, people
come
should
back
get
here
to
and
see
say hi.
Beebs. Beebs is an inherent part of the team
Yeah, look
here.
at that. That's Beebs over
This
there.
is
How
the
you
one
doing,
on the
man?
ones and
I'm
twos.
great. How are you?
Thanks for having us. You make us sound great.
I'm very glad I made sure you had your mic on before the show started. So.
You're a hero, man. It's all right. It's okay. We're all getting through it together.
We're
it's tough
doing
out there.
it now. We're doing
Ohio
it
has
now.
issues, folks, and so does Ohio. Ohio has issues.
Well, as I was saying, it's wonderful for Mike to be back with us this week, so you won't have to just stare at me for the whole show.
What a nightmare that must have been for everyone.
Absolutely terrible. Now, we've got a fun show planned for you today, an interesting show, as always. We'll have a little fun with it. We'll give you an update on Ohio's Senate race. We've got some info on where the candidates stand, Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno.
I see here that it says that we're going to have a recreational marijuana update.
That is true.
Looking forward to that.
We are.
Okay.
Those applications are live now, folks.
Also, we had a special congressional election there. That was like on June 11th. That was just yesterday. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. We have a new congressperson from Ohio.
And there is some money coming to Northeast Ohio. So you had an opportunity to chat with our friend of the show, Jeremy Pelzer.
We got some prizes coming in Northeast Ohio. You're going to find out about how we're going to spend some of that windfall. And also, we're going to tell you what we need to know about the Ohio Supreme Court races.
Yeah, so lots of info to share there. So we'll just kind of dive right into it. First, we're going to give you your Senate candidate update. So we've got some info on where Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown stand on contraceptive access. This was from an article by Sabrina Eaton from Cleveland.com. In the US Senate last week, the right to contraception bill got sidelined. This is because the Republicans have enough votes to even prevent a bill from getting voted on, and that's what they did. So it didn't even get to come to a vote.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So that bill would have allowed easier access to contraception for individuals who live in states with stricter reproductive health laws.
It also would have protected healthcare providers' ability to prescribe contraceptives and information related to birth control.
Yeah. So I think always a bummer when something doesn't get to even come to a vote. You know, I think our legislature should be able to vote on it, but that did not happen. People who support this bill said that access to the country, across the country, access to contraceptive across the country has been limited because of extreme state abortion bans. And they say it's undermining access to Plan B. And survivors of sexual violence are also facing greater challenges to get emergency contraception, and healthcare providers are being prevented from educating patients on birth control.
Now we like to give you an update every week about what our Senate candidates are up to, and of course they both had something to say about this, right, Stephanie?
That is right. Your current U.S. Senator for Ohio, Sherrod Brown, he actually co-sponsored this particular bill when it was first introduced, so he supports it.
Fair to say if he co-sponsored it, yes.
Yes.
And what did Bernie Moreno have to say?
Spokesperson for Moreno's campaign said that he opposes the bill. That was the specifics of the statement.
Well, at least we got some clear-cut things there. Nothing wishy-washy whatsoever.
Right.
Okay.
So that's an update on where they stand on that particular bill that was trying to move its way through the Senate. Here's a quick summary, though, of an article that was written in the Ohio Capitol Journal. This was by Nick Evans, and this is about a claim from Bernie Moreno claiming responsibility for 5G access here in the Northeast Ohio area.
This was interesting. I read this. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So just to give you a quick high-level summary, because it's a bit complicated, there's lots of timelines here, but I'm going to give you a super high-level summary of it, okay? So Bernie Moreno claims that the Blockland Conference convinced AT&T to bring 5G to Cleveland. Now, this was a conference that happened, it was a two-part conference, but it started in December of 2018, and Bernie Moreno was a huge booster for this conference.
Yes. I remember
he was
that.
super into blockchain. This is related to blockchain technology. So if you're not familiar with the blockchain, Google it. It's kind of fascinating.
I did
stuff.
Google it. I looked into it. I still don't understand it, but he did try it. He was behind that. I know that.
He was.
Doesn't mean it wasn't good. I just don't understand it. There's a lot of good stuff that I don't understand.
If you're into crypto, you know all about the blockchain because things.
Where
are
my crypto bros at?
They're
out there. That's a huge demo for us.
That's right. So in 2019, Bernie Moreno claimed that the Blackland Initiative is what prompted AT&T to bring 5G service to Cleveland. This was something that he said back in 2019.
Now, I'm assuming that somebody is claiming that he is overestimating his value in bringing 5G here, much like when Al Gore said he invented the internet. Is this a Ohio version of Al Gore saying he invented the internet?
Well, that's an interesting comparison. Okay. I will tell you this much. We do know that AT&T's earliest announcements about 5G networks come from 2016, so long before the Blackland Conference.
Okay.
So you really need to read the article by Nick Evans. It is on the Ohio Capitol Journal website, and of course we'll link it in the show notes. It'll be linked in the YouTube video, and it's linked in an article on WKYC.com. So
we'll be linking it all. We'll be linking it up.
Linked up.
All right, what else do we have? What's next?
All right, so now we get to our Roundup Around Ohio. So to start our Roundup Around Ohio, you know, last week those applications went live for medical marijuana dispensaries to apply to also sell recreational marijuana products.
This is where I was thinking about a production note while we had already started this broadcast. And what I was going to say was, whenever we do a marijuana update, I did see, according to Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, they did say that most of their marijuana stories are doing really well right now. And so people love the ganja stories.
Yeah.
So whenever we do a marijuana update, we got to make a graphic that says marijuana update or weed update or something like that. And it should give that, we should use that generic Bob Marley music. You know what I mean? So it's
yes.
like, but it's got to be slightly different from his music.
Yeah.
So anyways, we should do that. So this is imagine it's there. Next week it will be marijuana update. All right.
That's,
you get it.
Like I kind of,
Yeah, you got it.
So those applications went live last week to sell recreational marijuana. And so we could actually be days away from recreational marijuana sales in Ohio. They don't have to wait until September to start approving these things. That's just the deadline. But not every city in Ohio has to open that up.
That's right.
NBC Cleveland investigative reporter Lynna Lai is here to tell us what's up with that.
It's a tale of two cities, Brecksville and Hudson, both Republican-leaning. But when it comes to pot,
we did put a 12-month moratorium on dispensaries.
Hudson is banning grow houses, but will allow dispensary sales in one district only.
It's a conditional use. You can legally have one there. So when the moratorium runs out, you could open a dispensary legally if you so chose.
However, Brecksville city leaders tell 3 News that while they support a ban similar to how it blocked medical marijuana in 2016, Brecksville will have voters decide what to do in November. Decisions are being made in cities all across Ohio. Some have already passed outright bans on marijuana dispensaries, including Strongsville, Avon Lake, Avon, North Olmsted, and Westlake. Meanwhile, these Cleveland suburbs are among those putting a pause on their decisions by passing marijuana moratoriums until the state's cannabis program is rolled out.
Lakewood is open for business.
But cities like Lakewood are ready. City Council last week lifted its moratorium to allow for recreational sales on day one.
The city of Lakewood definitely, wants to make sure that we do this thoughtfully and safely and respond to the voters' choice.
Now, there is a big financial incentive to allow dispensaries. You see, host cities will get 36% of the taxes on marijuana sales, which could mean an estimated $250,000 a year from just one dispensary.
Definitely a lot of money in it if you are going to allow the marijuana sales recreationally.
Thank you, Lynna Lai. That was great. And as a Lakewoodite, I'd also like to say thank you, Mrs. Mayor. No, it's
Right?
It's up to the cities now. It's
Yeah.
up to the areas themselves. And it's interesting. Michigan has this same setup. So if you're in Michigan, if you are a city, you can choose whether or not you want to have marijuana sold in your town, and a lot of them said no. In fact, I believe it's between 60 and 70% said no, we don't want to. But the 30% that did, they are reaping the tax benefits of that, and that's so you have your option, is what I'm saying, whether you want that or not. And Ohio has the same option, and Lakewood's one of them that's saying cool. And then there are a bunch of narc cities around here who are like pass.
Well, it's not going to necessarily start on the same day everywhere, too, by the way, because these applications are going to be approved on a rolling basis. That's according to the state, because they got those apps rolling in from the medical dispensaries.
All right, what's next, boss?
We are hearing from you, Mr. Polk.
Oh my gosh, we had an election. Did you guys know that? We had a special election just yesterday. How about that?
We did.
Here in Ohio.
For Congress.
And it was for the 6th Congressional District. Go ahead and show it to us there, Babes. The 6th Congressional District right there. That's up there. It's hugging up there. If you can see that, that's on the eastern side of Ohio, hugging up against Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania and whatnot, including Youngstown, Y-Town, where I have had a cup of coffee there. And then just to give you an idea, that's Columbiana County. That's where East Palestine is. That's unfortunate. So that's kind of the flavor of the country right there. So we have a new Republican state rep. It's Michael Ruley. Republican state rep Michael Ruley won yesterday in the special election. For
United States Congress.
Yes.
So he's representing us in Washington, D.C.
That's true.
Well, he's representing that district in Washington, D.C.
Now, this is open because the YSU Board of Trustees appointed Bill Johnson that was the former guy who was holding that seat, to be the university's president back in November. He left Congress early and started in January. You can come back to us, Babes, here. Now, think about that. So he just left because he got the YSU job. By the way, trivia fact, former person who held that was actually, you want to take a guess?
No.
Babes, you know? No. Jim Tressel.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? The Ohio State coach, Jim Tressel, was the president
of YSU.
That he is replacing now. Now he is the president of YSU, so he got offered this job. And there was a little pushback to this, obviously, because he had been elected. And some people were like, oh, you're going to leave right now? Because this seat's been vacant since January, which, especially in a tight Congress, is pretty meaningful.
Right.
And there's not a lot of jobs you can do that at, where you can just be like, I know that I got elected by these people and everybody wants me to, but I got like a higher paying thing over here, so I'm just going to skate early. But thanks, everybody, I'm out. But that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And you can do that, I guess. And so he did that.
Yeah.
And so this has been empty for a while, and it's obviously important because we got 218 Republicans and 213 Democrats and 4 vacancies in the House right now. So every seat obviously counts. So
Very important.
Michael Ruley won. Let's take a look at the next one here. This is the next slide. There it comes. Yes. There. Oh, okay. So these are the results right here. As you can see, Michael Ruley won. And people aren't so surprised by that so much. What they're surprised by is the fact that he didn't win by a ton. It's the margin that surprises people. It's way closer than people expected. The district had at one point an 18% advantage to Republicans based on voting results in partisan statewide elections over the past decade. And Trump won this district in 2020 by 29%, and Michael Ruley won by 9%. And so that's obviously a steep drop-off there. And, so to make that kind of a jump, it also shows that this is also an area that was against issue 1 last year when they tried to bump up the constitutional
and make it harder
to pass constitutional amendments. And they were also pro-issue 1 when they tried to make abortion a fundamental right in the Ohio Constitution.
Enshrined in the Ohio Constitution. Confusing, different issue 1s from August to November.
Yes, it is, of course. But what I'm saying is you can't necessarily predict how these people are going to vote in this area that I'm from. And let me tell you, my people are complicated. We contain multitudes, as far as I am concerned. It should be brought up, too, that Democrats doesn't seem like made a heck of a play for this seat. I think they considered it a done deal because of those numbers I just referenced. They considered it a done deal and they ran somebody who just applied, I think. And I'm not condemning this person, but Michael Ruley who won for the Republicans, was an Ohio State Senator, and he owns some grocery stores, the Ruley Brothers grocery stores. And he ran against a gentleman named Michael Kripchak. He was the Democratic candidate, and he did serve in the Air Force. We don't know exactly why he left, but after he separated from the Air Force, he moved out to Los Angeles to pursue a career in acting.
There he is. That's his IMDb page.
I found that. He had a startup business at one point after that, and but it crumbled during the COVID-19 pandemic. He was most recently a server at a restaurant in Youngstown, but he quit 2 months ago to pursue this politics full-time. And so, wait, I think I have his movie credits here. Let's look at the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
So he was in something called thank you. He was in something called Searching for Fortune. He was in Lavender to Red. That's a short.
Okay.
Most of these are shorts. Little Alex, Doran, Gone, Exhausted, The Perfect Fix, Adam, and No TP. A lot of short work.
Okay.
I'm not saying that, I'm not condemning short work. There's a whole Oscar category for it. But
2011 to 2017.
what I'm saying is,
busy guy.
maybe Democrats didn't send their best in this case. And I'm not condemning him. Good for him for applying. I'm glad to be a part of democracy. But what are Democrats thinking when obviously that was at least approachable seat? They just considered it that far gone, I suppose.
Seems to be the case. It certainly does. There's nothing I hate more than seeing an uncontested seat. And we got some of those happening here in the state of Ohio, too.
That's not great. I do also want to point out one more thing. Can we actually look at the next slide here? Here's the two of them. That's Michael Ruley on the left, and that's our Michael
Kripchak
on the right. He doesn't look anything like his IMDb. Can we agree?
That's a different guy.
Show the next one. I made a comparison. What are you doing, Michael?
Yeah.
Michael. Listen, you can get away with a little bit of fudging here and there, but that's your representation. That's the first picture.
He may have booked something more recently if he was keeping his headshot updated on IMDb.
Can you imagine him showing up to an audition if that's his updated headshot on IMDb, and then he shows up and he's like, hey, I'm the hunky guy. I'm not, and he's still a handsome gentleman.
Yeah, it's just different.
It's a totally different person. I'd cast him in a different thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you imagine what Michael's Tinder profile looks like? It's got to be. He's so
Michael's
jacked
probably
on it.
happily married.
Okay,
we
that's
have no
enough of
idea.
that.
We're not starting any rumors here. We have no idea if he's on Tinder.
My point is, it does seem like possibly Democrats in Ohio might have dropped the ball here because it seems like they could have possibly had somebody more competitive.
Potentially so. This race was a lot tighter than people were expecting it to be, for sure. And they're going to be running again, from what I understand, in November because this was just to fill this remainder of Bill Johnson's term, which was going to end at the end of the year anyway. So people will get to vote again in November on this race.
Yes, so you get another chance. So Michael's back at it, and go see all of his movies.
The two Michaels.
Go see all of Michael's movies.
Yeah, why not?
All right, what's next, Stephanie?
All right, next up, actually, so there's a ton of money, from what I understand,
oh, yeah, that's
coming to Northeast Ohio.
Hey, jackpot, everybody. We really should, again, we should put some production into this, and we should have some sound effects and stuff later
on. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That's kind of what I... No, you're not into that?
That's
okay.
all right.
Cash register?
So there's a bunch of projects that we're going to be actually creating right here, somewhat in Northeast Ohio. I was surprised to hear that. And my man Jeremy Pelzer is going to tell you all about it. Congratulations, everybody. Jackpot.
I'll just be thinking about how you don't like my sound effects, but...
Jeremy Pelzer, thank you for joining us again, sir.
Always great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
In case you somehow don't know this, Jeremy is a political reporter and government reporter for Cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. You do a heck of a job doing that, obviously, but you're so much more than that. We should learn something else about you, Jeremy. For example, I play poorly, but I play with enthusiasm Irish music in a traditional folk Irish music band, and I enjoy the 1970s detective show Columbo. Those are two little things about me. Is there anything about you that you want to share with everybody?
Sure. One is I do improv comedy on the side, not professionally, obviously, but on the side. And then also when I was 4, I hid in the Milwaukee airport and forced the Milwaukee airport to close down for a couple hours while they tried to find me. So
see, I'm so glad I asked. Not about the improv thing, obviously. That'd be terrible to watch, but the Milwaukee airport thing sounds fantastic.
So
that was pre-TSA too. Like, so they had to care.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You could just smoke a cigarette, get on a plane, no questions asked.
Big thing of scotch. Okay, well, we're here to talk about moolah today because you had an article out just last week talking about we apparently had a bit of a windfall here in Ohio, and we had to leave it up to our politicians to decide how to spend it. Now, first of all, why don't you tell us where this big pot of money came from, Jeremy?
Sure. So the lawmakers are moving now on something called the capital budget that they pass every 2 years, perhaps not coincidentally during election year, because this budget is just filled with money for various projects, both like state and public projects, but also just grants to programs like the Cleveland Orchestra, things like that. And normally this is funded through bond money, which is sort of boring, but then there's like real strict limits on how you can spend that. This year, there's $700 million in excess or surplus revenue, as they call it, just revenue that for various reasons was left over at the end of the last year, partially because there was coronavirus money, partially because they had more tax revenue come in than expected. So now they have the $700 million to play with, and they are going to spend it on all these projects around the state. Northeast Ohio is going to get a big chunk of this.
Okay, well, why don't you roll out some of those goodies that we're going to be getting here in Northeast Ohio and across the state?
All right, so first a caveat that they haven't passed it yet, so we have to make sure that this is not a final thing. It looks like lawmakers are going to give $20 million for a land bridge connecting downtown Cleveland with Brown Stadium and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's going to go over Route 2 and the train tracks over there. That's obviously a drop in the bucket compared to the total cost of the land bridge, but I guess every little bit helps.
Sure.
$1 million towards a pro women's soccer stadium that they want to build sort of by Progressive Field, by that fire museum, if you know where that is, sort of by Progressive. And then just a whole bunch of other stuff. $7 million to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to help them with their expansion. $2 million to help Cleveland Zoo build a new indoor primate forest. $1.8 million to help build an astronaut training center near the airport. So just a whole bunch of stuff.
That was my idea, actually. I'm glad they're finally getting around to that message box. That suggestion box. I am happy that that's happening. That is a bunch of money going up to Northeast Ohio. Now, politically, why are they sending all this money up to Northeast Ohio? From what I understood, we're a pretty gerrymandered legislature. Why are they even caring about making us happy up here?
Well, for one thing, the Senate Finance Chair is Matt Dolan, who's from Chagrin Falls. So he has a lot of clout and a lot to say about bringing money into his district, which, is in Northeast Ohio. Good. And also as far as anything can kind of be nonpartisan these days, the capital budget tends to be, hey, we're going to help everyone. One thing interesting is that the House's version, because they split up this money, the House gets $350 million, the Senate gets $350 million. The House's version tends to not really help critics of Speaker Jason Stephens. So like Derek Marin and his followers didn't get a whole lot out of this. The Senate initially objected to that, but now it looks like they're going to go along with that. So they seem to be the only real losers of this capital budget.
And that's an extension of that interfighting turmoil that we have going on in there. Just once more, can you just tell us why that's happening?
Basically, Matt Huffman, who's the Senate president, is term limited. He wants to not only join the House, he wants to stay in leadership. So he's trying to knock off Jason Stephens next session and become House Speaker. So it's Stephens versus Huffman. And, there's been a whole bunch of gridlock as a result of that leadership fight.
And that's even extended into, we're not going to give you any fun treasury. We're not going to give you any fun toys or anything like that to give out to your districts. Because of
not overtly, they haven't said it overtly, but if you just look at where the money's going, there's not a lot of money going to Stephens' opponents in the House, their districts.
Any surprises as far that you saw as far as money going towards anything that you didn't expect?
I'm a little surprised. The Senate wasn't initially going to play ball with the House the House said, hey, here's our 350 million in projects, land bridge, women's soccer stadium, and the Senate said, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're going to hold up and might open up the hood and throw some parts out of your budget plan. But now it looks like they're going along with it. So that's a little surprising. Another thing is, this goes beyond the 700 million. So there's $1.6 billion in bonds here for jail construction, for school construction. There's going to be about $150 million or so for, quote, community projects, which is basically the same thing, just Cleveland Orchestra and various projects like that. That's an additional about 150 million. So there's going to be a lot more money added. We're going to find out next week where that money's going. So there's more to come.
Can you read anything else politically from what's being financed here? Is there anything where you're like, oh, that tells me that they're making a push for this?
Well, in general, as I kind of hinted earlier, it's pretty good timing if you're running for election to go back to your district and say, hey, look at all the money I brought you guys. And so it's not really a coincidence they passed this a little bit before the election. But then other than that, there's kind of an understanding of, at least traditionally, of, hey, we're just, everyone puts in their requests and we'll try to give everyone within reason what they want. Because if you start fighting over this, then it makes it a lot harder and a lot more complicated to take credit for it when you're running for election.
Now, I'm by no means complaining about any of these projects. I think it's great. But I do have to bring up the fact that fiscal prudence does tend to come up now and again here. And even the idea of getting rid of the income tax in general. How do these sort of lavish spending sprees, how do they contrast with what some of our legislature talks about throughout the rest of the year?
So most of this is state bond money, and there's constitutional rules about limiting how much you can spend on that. So that isn't really out of the ordinary here. The past few months, and in fact, most of the fiscal year that's about to end for the state, they're actually hundreds of millions of dollars down from what they expected to get in tax revenue. So that won't affect this capital budget because, again, it's money that's already been left over from last year and bond money. But going forward to the next budget, lawmakers are going to have to make some pretty tough decisions because they got a lot of expensive things they want to do, and they're going to have a lot less money to do it. So school voucher expansion, like you said, cutting the income tax more, affordable housing, childcare, all those things are going to be competing for a lot of money, and that money is starting to dry up a little bit. So that'll be fun to look at next year.
So this could be our last big spending spree before we actually have to start thinking about tightening our belts.
Yeah, get the open bar while you can because the party's about to close.
Well, I say let's enjoy it. Jeremy, what are you working on right now? Anything that you want to plug? Any fun political Pelican Brief type conspiracy stories going on?
Well, the Ohio House is about to vote today on a whole bunch of bills, one of which would crack down on feral pigs in Ohio. Apparently, it's a big problem around the country, including in Southeast Ohio. They rip up people's property and they can be dangerous. And so there's, you can basically now, if this passes, if there's a hog on your property, you can shoot it on site without needing a license, so long as you tell the authorities you did it afterward.
Southeast Ohio. We really do live in two different states sometimes. Doesn't it feel that way? All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
Another pork bill.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks. That's Jeremy Pelzer from Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Have a good one, man.
You too.
Hell's Bells bringing the heat as always. A couple of nice things for the area if you didn't pick up on that. Land bridge to help us get over to Brown Stadium, which is nice because there used to be a football bridge that was orange and looked like a goal. It had the hash marks on it, like it was a field. Very nice, but it became far too dangerous, so they shut it off, and now it's just like a ghost thing that you get to look at but not use. So that'll be nice to get over there if that's still there. And then the other thing that they're going to do is that addition to the Rock Hall, which they're going to help subsidize that a little bit, and so we can get that many more rad guitars that used to be played by Alice Cooper.
I just need to make sure that everybody could appreciate Pelzer's joke about pork barrel politics.
Yes, everyone
it got a little hard to hear at the end. I just wanted to make sure that
didn't
everybody
deserve that much. Thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate
I really liked it. Thank you.
I know. All right, well, what's next?
Sorry, I'm still laughing about that joke.
I know,
okay,
it's great.
So We have some Supreme Court races coming up in this upcoming election.
Right, that's right. We actually, normally people don't care about state Supreme Court races, but I've actually seen in several national publications, apparently Ohio's Supreme Court race is important this year. Why is that?
Yeah, so there are actually 5 states that have competitive Supreme Court races in their particular states this year, and the results in those 5 states could potentially shift the ideology of the court, because we are in a time where we now do know the party affiliation here in Ohio of Supreme Court justice candidates. So the 5 states are Michigan, Montana, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Ohio.
Hey-o. And this obviously matters more now than it does sometimes, what the overturning of Roe v. Wade and whatnot, because these are the people who are deciding whether or not, because now that it is a state issue, these are the people who are deciding the arguments on that.
These people are deciding whether the laws that are on the books about abortion in a particular state are constitutional based on that state's constitution.
And sometimes, believe it or not, judges' ideologies might seep into their decisions.
They are not robots.
Possibly.
They are not robots.
Possibly.
So Ohio has Supreme Court justices that are up for election, 3 seats on the ballot in November on Ohio Supreme Court. So we wanted to kind of get a little bit more info on the background of this. So
what did you find out?
We tracked down Louis Jacobson. So Louis Jacobson is a very busy man. He, for his day job, is the chief correspondent for PolitiFACT, if you're familiar with that website. Yeah, the fact-checking politics website. And he's been breaking down Supreme Court races at the state level since 2016. So he has a huge backlog of what races were competitive, what was kind of happening, what was the landscape going into all of this. Breaks it all down. There are 33 states, by the way, that have Supreme Court justices on the ballot at the state level in this election.
I know that I am a nerd because when you said that this guy worked for PolitiFACT, I was like, oh my, I got kind of starstruck. I'm like, oh my,
I know,
we got someone from PolitiFACT? It was like I was meeting Davy Jones from the Monkees.
That's right. That is where we are at here on Ohio as it has issues. We got that street cred, people. He's also a senior columnist for Sabato's Crystal Ball from the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia.
Wow.
And that is where this article that we are talking about comes from. So listen to my conversation with Lou.
I'm excited.
All right, we're here with Louis Jacobson now. Lou, thank you so much for being with us here on Ohio Has Issues.
Thank you.
Now, you have been looking into state Supreme Court elections for quite some time, and you've got a great column that's out right now on Sabato's Crystal Ball. That's what we were kind of just talking about and letting our watchers and listeners learn about. So I want to ask you to give us a little bit of backstory here in Ohio on the balance of power in Ohio Supreme Court over recent history. What's that looked like?
Sure. Well, let me just first say state Supreme Courts are hugely important, particularly when you see like the Dobbs decision passing a lot of the power on abortion policy down to the states. Redistricting is a huge topic as well. These are very powerful positions because state legislatures have increasing power in terms of passing bills that really shape people's lives. And the state Supreme Courts really have the final say on those bills. So very, very powerful position. There are 33 states that are going to have judicial Supreme Court elections this year. And one of those is Ohio. And pretty much every 2 years, Ohio in recent years has voted for at least one, if not more, seats on its state Supreme Court. It's a 7-seat court. Currently, it has a 4-3 Republican majority. That's gone a little bit back and forth. As recently as 2016, the GOP actually had a 6-1 lead. Then the Democrats had a couple of good election cycles, brought it to within four Republicans to 3 Democrats. But really face a challenge. The state of Ohio has become increasingly Republican in statewide races. And the 3 seats contested this year include 2 incumbent Democrats who must face the voters now. And then one is an open seat that is held by the GOP. So in theory, the Democrats could flip the chamber 4-3, but that seems pretty unlikely because they really have to make sure, first and foremost, that their 2 incumbent Democratic justices win re-election. And then they'd also have to flip that open seat. So the Democrats have won a couple of state Supreme Court races in recent years. In 2020, they won one. And in 2018, they won 2. And that is what enabled them to claw back from the 6-1 deficit to a 4-3 deficit. But the last time that they won a state Supreme Court race was 2020. I believe the last time Democrats have won any statewide office in the state of Ohio was in 2018. Aside from that 2020 Supreme Court race, was in 2018 when Sherrod Brown won the last time for Senate. Of course, he's up again this year, defending his seat in a very tough race. So the GOP should have a pretty good chance of maintaining its majority. It may stay at 4-3. It could expand to 5-2 or even to 6-1, depending on how the races go. But in general, Republicans have been in the driver's seat in the state for the past couple election cycles. So chances are likelier that it's going to be at least as strong a GOP majority as it is now going forward.
Okay. And in your coverage of the Supreme Court, can you tell me, the Republicans have been in power, as you've said, since at least 2016 here in Ohio. What are some key rulings that have been handed down here in Ohio when the Republicans have held that power?
Yeah. So, I mean, one obviously is the redistricting case. And this was a voter pass ballot initiative. And the state Supreme Court, back when this was really a very hot issue, the GOP had a 4-3 edge in the court, but that fourth vote they had actually often sided with Democrats on that issue. Then in 2022, that justice stepped down, and the GOP won the race to succeed her and got a more down the line Republican justice. So they have a firmer 4-3 majority than they used to prior to 2022. So that's still an issue that could be relevant and come back to the court going forward, in which case the GOP would have a stronger position than it did previously. Although voters may also approve a new system on redistricting in this year's election. So that kind of remains to be seen. The other thing that the court will potentially have a major say in is how the 2023 abortion rights amendment that passed fairly widely by voters will be implemented, and challenges to it and so forth. So those are two of the big issues, and there will certainly be others as well.
So that's forward looking. So that's implications for what will happen with this election upcoming in November. Okay, I want to ask you specifically about Supreme Court Justice Joseph Deters. He is a Republican. He was appointed by Governor Mike DeWine. Now he is running this year, but he's not running for the seat that he currently has. He's running against a fellow member of the court, a Democrat. Why is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for Supreme Court justices in states to choose which seat they run for. It may be advantageous because the term ends later than the seat that they're currently in. Sometimes they run for a chief justice position, which is elected separately, and sometimes it's got a political prerogative because they can knock out somebody in the opposite party from a seat that they already have. Yes, in this case, they are running against a fellow Democratic justice, Melody Stewart. So that leaves open one seat that the two parties are going to have nominees for, and they'll be fighting over this fall.
Got it. So it's two members of the court. One is a Republican, one is a Democrat, rather than running in the open seat that Republican has chose to run against the incumbent Democrat.
Right.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Your article kind of outlines which states have these competitive state Supreme Courts, and Ohio is among 5 states that there is the potential to flip the ideology. I know you said potentially not likely here in Ohio, but possible. So as you look at this and have kind of laid this out, where do you think Ohio fits into the bigger picture of the November election countrywide?
Yes, well, certainly the state is going heavily Republican in recent elections. Is a very highly competitive Senate race with Sherrod Brown this year, seeking another term. That's where most of the focus is going to be nationally, because that seat is really going to be pivotal in terms of Senate control. The Democrats currently have a 1-seat majority in the Senate. There's 1 seat they're going to lose already in West Virginia, and the Senate seats in Ohio and in Montana are very, very closely competitive. So you could see a Republican takeover in the US Senate. So most of the attention on Ohio these days is going to be on the Senate race. It used to be that the state was very much a bellwether state in the presidential race. That is no longer true. In 2020, the Democrats made some noises about trying to go after it, but particularly after that election and the 2022 election, you really don't hear Democrats saying much about trying to contest the state of Ohio in the presidential race. And there's no governor's race this year. So really the big action is the Senate and then the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court.
Okay. And you have your hand in a lot of things. Thank you so much for the analysis you're doing on these upcoming elections, especially here in Ohio. Where can people find your work if they want to keep up with what's going on with Louis Jacobson?
Sure. They can just Google Sabato's Crystal Ball, SABATO''S, Crystal Ball at the University of Virginia. And they can find all my judicial race handicapping for those 33 states that are having elections in 2024 for the Supreme Court. And so that's about it.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time here on Ohio Has Issues.
Great. Thank you.
Good info there. Now, who is up against who in this upcoming election?
Yeah, so let's break that down very clearly so everybody can kind of see who is facing off against who. So the races for the Ohio Supreme Court are current Justice Michael P. Donnelly, who is a Democrat, facing off against candidate Megan E. Shanahan, who is a Republican. Also, current Justice Melody Stewart, who is a Democrat, facing off against current Justice Joseph Deters, who is a Republican. That's the race that we were talking about where Deters was previously appointed and will be running in the election now, but chose to run against the Democrat rather than running in the open seat. So this will also be the first election for Supreme Court Justice here in Ohio that Deters will be a part of because, again, he was previously appointed by Governor Mike DeWine.
Right.
And then the final race is 2 candidates, Democrat Lisa Forbes running against Republican Dan Hawkins. So
those are both newcomers right there, right?
Newcomers, yes. You'll get your opportunity to vote for any of those people in the November election.
Well, I feel smarter. Do you?
I do, yeah. We learned a lot this week.
I learned a lot from you as well. Thank you for watching, everybody. This is Ohio Has Issues.
We'll see you back next week.